I definitely think your environment shapes your upbringing. I don't think you understand love until you have a child.
What do you want people to say about you when you're gone?
I believe legacy, can be two ways. You can take or you can leave.
I think you gotta have a dream.
The School of Greatness.
Really?
Yeah.
Please welcome Lewis House.
I'm curious, what does it take in your mind to develop a winner's mentality even when you're not winning?
I honestly think it's like the obstacles and the barriers. I was fortunate enough to grow up in an amazing environment at home.
Yeah.
Both my parents were there, every game, every play, everything. And honestly, I feel like I was really lucky from that standpoint. But when I got to college, I think in some ways, in some areas, because things were so quote unquote perfect in a way, that might have hindered my tenacity and my, ability to know if I could get over obstacles. And so, when I got...
You had too much love from your parents.
I think I had a little bit too much love, too much everything.
There was not enough adversity.
There's just not enough adversity. And, honestly, it's a way of evening things out. I get to college and, I wake up from surgery. I tore my ACL the year before, wake up from surgery, and they're like, you might not play basketball ever again. And I just remember, at that point in time, my dad, he let me have my pity party. And then he was like, you can either have a pity party or you can get this done. So you need to decide. You need to look yourself in the mirror and you need to make a promise. And at that point, it was like, I think I developed that mentality. Like I decided to have that winning mentality of overcoming adversity and obstacles.
Do you think all champions need adversity in order to become a champion, or can they get there without some surgery, breakdown, letdown, parent breakup, some type of extreme adversity? Do you think it's possible?
I'd be interested to know if there's anybody that has just had it. Because, even if you think about like Michael Jordan, you think about the greats of Phil Jackson, you think about, just everybody that's amazing in their field, Serena Williams, Dominique Dawes, Dominique Moceanu, like you think about those amazing athletes, they've faced adversity. There's always been a time where you have to decide whether you're going to get up or you're going to quit. And I think it's because they get up, that's the reason why they're equipped to be able to face those challenges. Everybody thinks that like when you win a championship, everything's so easy. But you go back, like what if Jordan didn't make that steal against Karl Malone? Like there are certain plays that you have to make. One play completely defines who somebody is or isn't.
Crazy.
And I think those moments of adversity kind of prepare you for that moment so you're not scared of it.
Yeah. How is it? You were in the WNBA #1 pick 2008, is that right?
You're dating me, but yes.
The same year.
I'm getting old.
You went to the Olympics that year, right? And which must have been amazing. I've wanted to go to the Olympics since I was a kid. But you didn't win a WNBA championship for 8 more years, is that right?
Yes.
How do you handle that mentally when you're #1, you're, I think, 2-time player of the year in college, is that right? Or in high school, 2-time player of the year in high school and college. How do you win for so long and then not win for 8 years? How do you stay motivated, disciplined, excited, having fun when you're not winning the championship?
I think that's the challenge. It's weird because I can remember every single moment and every loss. Like after every, we had this discussion after we won, because after we won, I was like, man, there's a joy, but I just want to do it again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's almost like that, like, it's like the disease. You just, you taste the cake. You want to eat the cake again. You don't want just one slice. So that's how it was with winning. And like, I almost felt like the feeling of winning was less of a feeling than the like heartache of defeat. And so honestly, I feel like what kept me going is just like, I gotta get a piece of the cake. You know what I mean? And so every day I would just wake up. I think the hardest thing is when you do achieve success, to me, because there's everybody that's climbing the wall, like wants to win and is coming after you. And so it goes back to like the hunter versus the hunted. What's harder? And honestly, it is harder to be hunted every year. And so for me, that's the biggest thing, is just to come back and do it again. It's so hard going that long without a championship, but you wake up with so much motivation every single day, so much doubt every day from other people. as to whether you can do it or not.
How much doubt do you have with yourself? Do you live with doubt or insecurity, or do you feel like you are unstoppable every moment of the day?
It has taken a while for me. I don't know if it's doubt or just learning to be in the moment. Because everybody has insecurities, everybody has doubt, everybody has fear, a what if type of thing. But when you're truly like in the moment, like that stuff doesn't matter. And I would get so, if I scored 30 or if I scored 35 and had an amazing game, I was on to the next play. It was the next game, next whatever. But I found when I scored 10 or 5 and didn't play well and just I hung on to it. And so I learned that I play better when I just in the moment and I prepare, do the best I can, and then I live with it. And it wasn't always like that.
Yeah.
Wasn't always like that.
Did you ever used to beat yourself up for many days and weeks or months in a poor performance?
1,000%.
Really?
And you can see it. My brother, my oldest brother, played basketball for 10 years in the NBA. He's been my hero for life. I talked to him after almost every game. And Anthony would always tell me, you should take the shots you should take, regardless of what the previous play is. And he would see my hesitation if I missed a couple. And then obviously Kobe. I asked him because he would be the king of going 5 for 26 and then hitting the game winner. And I remember asking him.
Missing over and over.
He would miss over and over and over again, but then get the ball in the crunch time, do his move, go to his spot, right shoulder turnaround, bam. Like left dribble, bam. And I remember asking him, like, how do you have the courage to take those shots? And him saying, because I put in too much time and so much effort and so much repetition that the next shot has to go in. Like percentage-wise, when you miss 3 or 4, you should really be taking that next shot because it has to go in.
Wow.
And so he's like, when you prepare, that's when it takes all that out of there. And so I just kind of listened to that, and it's taken some time.
You're still getting there.
It's very interesting. I had a conversation. I'm a big believer in like asking people what they consume, like people that are successful or whatever. And I remember talking to Kobe and him saying that he really enjoyed this.
Wow.
And so I just want to say, like,
wow.
Yeah. So that was powerful to me, and that was when my agent reached out. I was like, hell yeah, like this is.
Wow, that's cool.
So that's cool.
Wow.
And even
So
like other
him...
episodes. So I'm a big and I'll ask you after the show,
sure.
what is your favorite books? What are you reading right now? What are your podcasts that you listen to? Everybody gets tired because I send the same text every year. I'm like, so are you listening to anything else? Like I'm big into that. And I was annoying with Kobe. Like, what are you reading right now? What are you reading right now? Like, what are you doing? And he would always be like, I'm doing this, I'm reading this. And so this was one of the things that he mentioned.
Did he say he was listening, or did he say he just enjoyed being on the show?
He said he enjoyed being on the show, but
great.
he's also listened.
That's
and
cool.
this is, a good podcast to listen to.
That's great.
So
awesome. It's good to know.
Yeah.
It's good to know.
I think you already kind of knew, but
it's good to know coming from Kobe, though. It's great. I mean, we had a great connection. I mean, I didn't meet him before then. 3 minutes before I connected with him, right when he came out, and his publicist and the whole team was there, and they were like, he's got 20 minutes, and he was like, take as much time as you want. He was really cool about it.
He's
super cool.
He was our first guest on our podcast, Lailaa and Parker. And, I'm friends with him, but I didn't want to ask to, you know how it's kind of like that line where you're like, I don't really want to ask because people ask you 50 million times.
For everything, yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, I don't want to be that person. He actually saw the promo for the New York game that we were doing and was like, do you have a guest? And I was just like,
hey, come on.
Yeah, we would love, I've been wanting to ask you. He was like, yo, don't even go through. I was like, we were trying to go through your publicist. We were trying to go through. He's like, skip all that.
Wow.
Whatever.
That's pretty cool. So you've been pretty close with him for a while?
Yeah, 2008 was when
you came into the league.
He became kind of like my little mentor. And yeah, we went through waves of super connected to, fall off to text every whatever, but he's always been in the playoffs is when we're super.
Yeah. I mean, he was such a big fan of the WNBA. Mm-hmm. What's been the biggest insecurity you've had to overcome?
I feel as though when you're able to do a number of things, when you can dribble, when you can pass, when you can shoot, people expect you to always constantly make the play that you should make or the best play. And because you can do so much, I find it harder because you don't know if that's a good shot because you can make a nice pass. And so I think the struggle I've had has been making sure that I'm listening to my voice and what I know is right and doing the best I can and not necessarily focusing on the other stuff. Because when you become a leader, when you become, a star on a team and you're dependent on night in and night out, you're going to make more mistakes than people on the team. That's the reality of it.
Yeah.
But you have to be confident in your decisions.
How do you handle your emotions when you know you've made a mistake and you're being criticized for that mistake? Whether it be by a few people or by the online world or whatever it may be.
It's really funny because this last 2 or 3 years, my mantra has been calm is a superpower. I always struggled because I feel as though in women's sports, and women in general, in business, wherever, politics, if you lose your composure, you're considered crazy, irrational, out of control. Whereas with a man, you're considered passionate, competitive, and all these things. And so I just determined, it's better to be calm anyway. You look back on things, and usually it's when you go crazy. Where you're like, I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have thrown that. You're apologizing for action, usually not inaction. And so that's kind of been my place of trying to reach that calm and be calculated. And the people I respect the most, they think before they say. That's kind of what I've tried to develop. I'm not perfect at all. I'm probably nowhere near where I need to be, but that's kind of been my mantra.
Do you think you think the greatest athletes are more calm than they are reactive and passionate, let's say? Or Muhammad Ali was very passionate, very outspoken, Conor McGregor, these people are very outspoken and passionate. Do you think you can be greater by being more calm?
I think our society likes to put and label individuals. You meet people that are loud and, say all these words, but what's the action that backs it up? And to me, it's the action. It's not necessarily what you do all before that.
Right.
Dame Lillard, to me, is one of the most...
The guy's a machine.
He's a machine, but he's one of those leaders that you can't tell on his face. And unfortunately for me, I was born with this problem that everything I think comes across my face.
I'm the same way.
To the point where now my daughter, 11 years old, will be like, Mom, what's wrong? When something comes on the television or something like that, you think this. And I'm like, no, I don't think that, but I do, but I don't, So it's trying to get under control, having composure. And I've learned throughout that when the team or whatever organization you're a part of, as a leader, if they're hyped and their level is 10, it's your job to kind of bring the team down to an even-keeled level. And when everybody is down, it is your job to
bring them up.
Yes.
A little bit, yeah.
It is your job. And so I feel as though, as I'm getting older and as I'm maturing, I try to do that in whatever situation, whether it's the team, whether it's my family. I'm trying.
Yeah.
Now, it's not always.
I know, right?
It's not always, it doesn't always work out. But at the same time, I think that's what I'm attempting to do.
Are you a student of sports psychology any chance, or have you worked with sports psychology?
It's my minor in college, yeah.
Do you work with any mindset coaches today, or have you recently?
So I am huge into reading and then reaching out to those that I read. Yeah, those authors. Joshua Medcalf wrote a book, Chop Wood, Carry Water, which I read right before in 2016. Before we won our championship. And what struck me about that book, and not spoiler, but in the book it was talking about golf balls and how initially golf balls were smooth, and when people would hit them, you couldn't control the direction that they were going. But they noticed that the more dented the golf balls were, as you hit them, they actually traveled better. So he used that as a metaphor of humans and people in life and individuals, and getting beat up and getting bruised, you actually will travel farther and better. And that just hit me in a way. The whole book is just do the best you can and then, live in the moment.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, that kind of reached me. And so I'm huge into psychology. I read a million books. Like, I'm really into it. I love panels. I love podcasts. So that's kind of where I go for my sports psychology.
Yeah, I read a book. I think it was called Champion's Mindset, or maybe it's called Train to Win. I forget. I'll have to check it out again. But this sports psychologist said that you should always practice like it's a game and bring your energy to the game level. And then at game time, actually like calm down and just be more relaxed and calm and be in the flow. So I always thought that was interesting. It's like raise it up in practice, bring it down before the game. Because usually before I learned that, I would get so hyped before a game, like,
in the game.
And I'm like, man, I'm tired. It's like you got no energy because you've just exhausted it in warm-ups and you're not relaxed.
It's so true.
Have you ever done that where you're just like, we're going to the championship, and then, I can't even lift my knees today.
Yeah, we call that the first 2 minutes. You know, when you get out of breath in the first 2 minutes of the game.
And you haven't done anything.
You know, the playoffs is. I remember we were in the WNBA Finals, and I walked out there, and it was a Game 5 against Minnesota, 2016. This is my first elimination winner-take-all game, and I remember looking around, and my heart was beating. You're taking deep breaths the first 2 minutes, and then you get lost in your craft. So it's like, literally, it's just getting past those first 2 minutes of anxiousness, and that's when you have the turnovers and the problems or whatever, and then you just settle in, and you try to, do what you've always done.
Yeah. Who was the most influential person in your life growing up?
Well, growing up, I idolized my brothers. My 2 older brothers, Anthony and Marcus, they're 8 and 11 years older than me, so I was the baby sister. And Anthony actually went on, played in the NBA, played for Toronto, played for the Cleveland Cavaliers for a while. And then my middle brother is actually a radiologist. He wanted to be a doctor since he was 5, and he went to medical school, went to Johns Hopkins, so we're really proud of him. So I had 2 amazing role models, just in not what their craft was, but just as people. Even to this day, anything I go through, any problem, obstacle, any choice I'm trying to make, I always reach out and talk to them. I mean, that's, they really are my foundation.
Yeah. What was the greatest lesson each one of them taught you?
My goodness, that's such a great question. Anthony is Mr. Devil's Advocate. So whether he is for it or whether he is against it, he is going to ask you the other side. That is my brother. So now when I'm thinking, and I think I watched an old Full House episode where it talked about your conscience and how eventually it becomes your own voice as opposed to your parents telling you you're not supposed to do stuff.
Yes.
That's my conscience now. I hear Anthony, and now it's my voice where I'm like, okay, so what if this? What is the other side? And so Anthony I joke with him that he would be the one that would play devil's advocate to winning the lottery or something like that. He's that type. But I would say that that's the lesson from Anthony. And then from Marcus, he is one of those guys that is just so certain on what he wants. And he will do and work for anything. And he said he wanted to be a doctor at 5 years old. And he worked and stayed motivated and long hours, push through adversity, everything to become a doctor. Yeah. And so I think just watching them operate the way their fathers, their husbands, it really is inspirational for me.
Yeah, that's cool. I love that you are a TikTok star through your daughter. And I love the relationship you guys have together where you're having jokes and playing around a lot on your social media. I think everyone should follow you guys there. What was that like being a mom in a career that I guess most women don't have kids at that age when they're trying to become great as an athlete in the WNBA that early? What was that like for you being a young mom while being the face of the WNBA? How did you manage that? And how do you manage it?
I remember it was coming off of 2008. We won the national championship, won Olympic gold medal. We lost in the WNBA semifinals, Western Conference Finals on a last-second shot. Anyway, I can still see it. And I remember I had just won Rookie of the Year and MVP, and I was in San Antonio. And I remember I started feeling a little sick. And I was like, okay. And my best friend was the first to find out. I told her that I was expecting. We were all excited. I was supposed to go to Russia that year to play overseas. But obviously we wanted to wait to tell everybody or whatever. The first reactions I got were so disappointing to me. Like, it was almost more of like, how could you do this to us as fans, not within the organization, but just the reaction that I got from others of like, oh, well, she's done. Like, she's washed up. She's not going to be able to come back. Like, she's not.
After your first year in the league.
This is after my first year.
Wow.
I became a young mom, and I let me give you some history. I've always wanted to be a mother. That has been what I feel as though I was born to be. I was playing dolls till I was like dang near 14. Like, I just love the idea of having a little you running around. And so I always wanted to be a young mom. So although I was surprised, I was extremely excited to have a daughter. But that wasn't the way it was accepted. And at the time, I set my mind where I was like, I'm going to come back and play on this date. So she was born May 13th. I played on July 5th in a game.
2 months later?
Played 2 months later. I was working out 2 weeks after I had her.
What?
I worked out my whole pregnancy.
Oh my gosh.
Young and dumb. You don't know. You're young and dumb.
I got this. I'll be back in 2 weeks.
Young and dumb. Yeah, back locked up, everything. It was crazy. But
oh my gosh. 2 months later playing.
Yes, and she honestly has been my entire inspiration, motivation, every single thing. Every day I wake up, I want her to know that I'm working for her. I want her to know that, I love her, and I want to set a great example.
Wow.
And honestly, the biggest thing that I would like to get across is within parenting, within sports, we've got to change and shift the perception of athletes and parenting and being there.
Right.
Because, a number of times I would go places and Lailaa wouldn't be with me, and they would be like, oh, well, who's watching Lailaa? Like, who's taking care of Lailaa? Like, who's whatever? But they're not asking LeBron or Steph or anybody or Dame Lillard or whatever. And I think it's so important for fathers to be there as well and to be present. And we're seeing now paternity leave, and we're seeing guys like Jimmy Butler miss his Miami Heat debut to be there for the birth of his daughter. We're seeing how hands-on Steph Curry is. And so I think for me, it's, the amount of support that I've had from LA Sparks, the amount of support I've had from my family. I'm lucky because as a working mom, my organization allows me to bring my daughter along.
That's cool.
I was nursing at halftime of games.
No way.
Yeah, it was
That's
just kind of the way it
crazy.
is. And so we've grown up. Me and Lailaa have grown up together.
So you were nursing in halftime in the locker room. Are there other moms that do this too? I mean at halftime?
I don't
That's
know,
amazing.
but I was just so stubborn in that I never wanted to sacrifice my career for my family, and I didn't want to sacrifice my family for my career. So the best thing is just do both. And honestly, I was adamant that I was going to nurse my daughter. We were going to go in crazy amount of countries, and we're traveling all the time. Like, I want to nurse her.
Wow.
So she nursed for 13 months. We didn't spend a night away from each other for 2 years. Like, she went everywhere with me.
That's crazy.
And that's, that's what worked for me. Other mothers can figure out what works for them, and that's fine. And fathers as well. But for me, that's what I needed.
Do you think other moms in the WNBA would have the same opportunities to do that? Or do you think because you were the number one pick, the star, the face, they were like, okay, if she wants to do this, you can have your kid in halftime while we're trying to focus on the game? That's
what I struggle with. Because everybody commends my effort at being a working mom, and I have to kind of take a time out because I'm like, there are women that can't bring their kids to their job,
right? That
can't travel with them, that need to find childcare, and I didn't have those issues and those obstacles. And you're right. I don't know if I was a second-round pick and trying to make it in the league, if I would even still be playing basketball with a child. Wow. And fortunately, we did re-sign a CBA because at the time in 2008, my daughter was traveling with me. I paid for my mom to fly. I paid for my half of the hotel because we were sharing rooms. All the extra costs that go into having a child. There was no child stipend. You're moving to a city, for 6 months. Who's going to watch them, type of thing. And now with this new CBA, there's maternity leave. You get full pay if you are expecting. So there are things that we're moving in the right direction.
Wow, that's cool. What's been the biggest challenge you've had to overcome in the last 12 years since entering the league? Most challenging phase of life?
I would say when I went through just the injury after injury after injury in the WNBA after having Lailaa. But I also would say it's tough going overseas for the other 6 months of the year. And there's so many times as I'm yanking my child out of school to take her overseas that I'm questioning whether I'm doing the right thing for her. And honestly, looking back, it couldn't have been better.
Really?
I think at the time that's the hardest thing that I've had to do is, take her out of school and go overseas and put her in these schools overseas. And she's looking at me like, I don't know what the heck they're saying.
Yeah.
And it's really served us well because she really is such a resilient, adaptable kid. Like you can put her in whatever room and she's gonna shine.
Wow. Where do you think she would be if she stayed in LA for the last 12 years or 11 years as opposed to exploring the world and being a global citizen?
It's interesting because, I definitely think your environment shapes your upbringing, but I think the most proud moment I've ever had was, and you're in LA, so there's elaborate birthday parties. We've gone to people's house where I'm like, my jaw's hitting the ground, like looking at this, and Lailaa is riding the camel at the birthday party, and I'm like, well, we're not gonna have a birthday party like this, but whatever. But we go overseas to Russia, and she has a classmate in her class, and the family invited us over to dinner, and so my translator came with us, and we were going to their house, and so we opened the door, and it's a one-room place with a stove in the middle with no floor. And I'm trying to get to Lailaa.
No floor?
There's no floor. It's dirt and wood. So it's just literally, So we get there, and I'm trying to get to Lailaa because I kind of she walks in first, and so I'm trying to get to her so that she doesn't say anything or whatever. And she looks around, and she's like, a dollhouse! And they just run over and start playing with the dollhouse. And so that to me was just like, we're doing something right, with her. And that to me was so special. So I feel as though, having those experiences of knowing a lot of different people from a lot of different areas that look different has really helped in who Lailaa is.
Yeah. What has being a mom taught you about yourself the most?
Gosh, everything. Every single thing. Everything you're great at is amplified. Everything you're terrible at is amplified.
Yeah.
I didn't know as much as I thought I did.
Well, you were what, 23,
I was 23.
24? Yeah.
I was 23 when I had my daughter, but she really has taught me probably the same amount as I've taught. It's
Really?
crazy how much she teaches me every day.
What's the 3 biggest lessons she's taught you?
She has definitely taught me that our actions speak way louder than words. I always used to tell her all the time, we don't cry when we lose. We do the best we can, we do this. And so I walked in, and one of her cousins beat her at a board game, and she's crying in the corner, and I go over there, and I'm like, Lailaa, I'm giving her a lesson, you don't cry, and this isn't a time for crying, you pick the pieces up, and you go back over there and play. And she's like, but you did, you cried. And I was just like, but that's different, but it's really not,
Wow.
And so it's just, she really teaches me that she's watching every single thing that I'm doing.
Every move you make?
Every move I make. She checks me on, big thing now is pronouns with her school, and they're learning about that in her community connections class. And so, they address when they get on, they say she, her, or her, him, him, whatever, they, however you want to be addressed. And so there was an Uber driver that was coming, and I said he, I didn't know if it was a he, but I said he, and she's like, well, how do you know it's a he? You're assuming. You shouldn't assume, So it's really interesting to see how this generation is being brought up, and it really makes me happy that they are very concerned about the next person, others, the environment, things like that. And so she's taught me so many lessons.
Where do you think you'd be if you didn't have her at that age and you had 5, 7, 8 years in the WNBA and on your career only in that? Do you think you would have accomplished more, won more championships, or do you think being a mom actually helped you become a better athlete?
I think being a mom helped me become a better person. And I say this all the time, without the injuries, without having my daughter, I might have had more championships.
Without injuries and your daughter?
Honestly.
Yeah.
But where I am now in terms of realizing I am so happy. I'm trying to get better every single day, trying to acknowledge my faults and look myself in the mirror and see where I need to improve and get better. And a lot of that is because of her, because of my daughter, because I want to I want to be somebody that she is proud of when she is older, that she wants to come home, that she is proud of who her mom is and not what I've accomplished.
Yeah, that's cool. I want to throw in the stuff you were talking about with Kobe, because you've known Kobe for a lot longer than me. I knew him once in an interview, and we stayed in touch over messaging each other, which was nice of him. But he was very impactful in my life, watching him as an athlete and also as a human, how he dealt with adversity from earlier in his career to how he transitioned almost seamlessly from athlete to entrepreneur, leader, creator, storyteller. What was the biggest lesson that he taught you? And what was the most impactful moment you remember spending with him?
Well, Kobe is one of the best dads. And I truly believe that the love that, he has for his family. And I think the biggest thing for me is just being able to kind of, like right now, even when I'm in the gym with my daughter and we're working on something, like he took the time and the energy. And as kids, he was just dad to them. It didn't matter if you won or scored 81 the night before, like you're picking up. I think the best story that he told, he was on our podcast, the Lailaa and Parker podcast that I do during the NBA season. And he said that he was late to pick up his daughter one time, and he wasn't on time, and they ripped him. And so every time after that, wife, daughters, everybody ripped him.
Wow.
He was on time, one of the first people to be there in pickup line to pick him up after that, because that was what he had to do. And so to me, I think you tell me who somebody is, but you tell what their family is going to say about them and how much time they spend and energy they spend. So for me, that was a huge role model, and just in the way that he spoke about them and how much pride and joy I remember running into him in China, and it was the first time I met his daughters, and
The Olympics?
he was like, you see, in the Olympics in 08, and he's like, you see them, they're gonna break all your records one day. That's the first thing. I'm like, well, nice to meet you. Like,
that was the first time you met him?
the first time I met his daughters.
Oh, okay, not him.
Not
Yeah,
him,
yeah, yeah.
but the first time I met his daughters, that's the first thing he said to me. And I just remember laughing over the years about that. And, it's just one of those things where you could see how much love and energy and effort that he put into his family and how much joy that brought him. And to be honest with you, I think the biggest thing is just overcoming adversity. People are, they think it's easy to get to 5 championships, or it's easy to just come out and score or whatever, but to see, like, working out with him and seeing the amount of detail and energy that he put into, I remember doing a jab step. We've done jabs since we were like 5. Jab step, jab step. He was like, no, I'm not biting. Your left leg doesn't move the same when you're going that direction. So why would I bite that you're actually going to go that direction? Like, that attention to detail that he has, like, it's an obsession. And I'm a firm believer in kids can get it. If you talk to them and teach them and spend time with them and tell them and teach them how to work to get something, they can get it. So we don't need to dumb down stuff. We don't need to baby them. And he didn't do that. Like, the basketball team he coached, they were running sets that we ran in college. Like,
Really?
Yeah. So it's just, I really loved that about him.
Was there one moment that stands out that was really memorable and impactful for you?
I think the amount of confidence that he has, and he's always had, is the thing that sticks out to me the most.
I'm global. Yeah.
Yeah, the amount of ways that he can just say things in just a Kobe-only mentality. There was a time in 2012 at the Olympics where we would always go play cards. And so it was like
London.
Yes, in London. And it was, the players' lounge where everybody would show up and we'd play cards and whatever. Literally, you could not leave if he lost. Like,
he had to keep playing until he won.
First of all, I'm looking over somebody's shoulder because the pot was ridiculous. I'm
Right.
not playing with D Wade and
Right.
Kobe and all that. But yeah, you can't leave, and he's sitting there like, no. Oh, so you're scared? You're not gonna play again? Like, dude, I've just beat you 4 straight times. How am I scared? Oh, you don't want to play again? So that's just his mentality. Like, he's always been like that. He's cocky, but he puts in the time.
Yeah. Who was the athlete on the men's side that you respected the most growing up?
I am a Chicagoan, so obviously I grew up watching the Bulls.
Mm-hmm.
I was a huge Bulls fan to the point where it was like, wait, we didn't win the championship this year? Like, trash, Because it was like the expectation was like Grant Park every single year. That's where the championship celebration was. Like, everybody knew. So I would say as a whole, just the Bulls franchise.
Were there any players when you were in high school and college that you watched and respected a lot?
I was the biggest Allen Iverson fan.
Really? Gosh, he's amazing.
Allen Iverson fan. My brother got drafted and he played with Philly his first 2 years. And Allen Iverson, when I saw him in person, my mouth like dropped. I was the biggest Allen Iverson fan to the point where it's like I was trying to get the braids. I had the finger band. My brother got a finger band from him, so I was wearing that. I was wearing the AI, the Reebok shoes. I was doing all that. Like, I was trying to be like AI.
Mm-hmm. Who's the athlete you respect the most?
It's a really good question. Honestly, Reggie Miller.
Really?
Why? Because I feel as though people don't understand that there were like, it was this.
So close.
And the way that we say and talk and the way people talk about championships, it comes down to like an inch. A centimeter. And that's how, that dude is bad. Like, he is unbelievable. And just realizing after working with him at TNT and NBA TV and things like that, realizing that it's not just like you can't turn it on and off. Like, you're not just a basketball player that is, attention to detail, whatever. Like, he's like that with broadcasting. He's always early, like super early to everything. He's always knows exactly what the rundown of the show is. Like, some analysts, it's like, just ask me the question, whatever. He knows everything. His attention to detail, he just puts in the time. He gets up every morning and works out at the butt crack of dawn. Like, being around him more, it's just so much respect for him.
Wow. And what about the female athlete not in basketball that you admire and respect the most?
Female athlete not in basketball. I mean, Serena Williams is...
She's a beast.
She's a beast. I mean, I grew up, my mom was trying to get me to play tennis like late in life, and I was just like, but I want to play basketball. But Serena had that impact.
You got that wingspan over
man. I was trying to get my daughter, and that didn't work out too well. Maybe my nieces or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, Serena Williams, I think for me it's, we connect on her being a mom as well. I think it's so important in stepping into places and rooms that aren't used to having people that look and are like you.
Right.
And she's done that and basically broken down every single barrier for those that follow. And to be able to see like the fruit of your labor while you're actually still playing. Like, to me, for her to be playing against some of these kids that the reason why they're playing tennis is because of her.
It's crazy.
To be able to see the fruit of your labor while you're still playing and you're still killing on the court. I mean, I idolize her for sure.
Wow. Because she had a child and then started playing within months, I think, afterwards too, right?
Yep.
Was it 2, 3, 4 months maybe? Yeah.
It's crazy.
Super fast. And still winning, and it's unbelievable. Do you have a mantra that you live by on a daily basis, or when you're in practice, or when you're at a game, when things aren't going well, or when you're tired, when you want to stop, when you'd rather go relax? Do you say something to yourself?
Well, I have two things. One, so I played for the late, great Pat Summitt at Tennessee.
I saw her speak once when I was 16, and I was so impressed with her leadership. What was that like?
Coach Summitt is one of those people that people try to emulate and be like her. There's nobody that can ever touch anything. It's just Pat is Pat. She transcended women's sports.
Yeah.
She transcended the ability of a lot of her student athletes to even have confidence in going forward and being who they are and walking into rooms. And when you talk about women equality, gender equality, she spearheaded all of that. So I would say my mantra when things get tough, because I think I learned so much more about her when things got tough than when she's winning championships. To me, it's like, let's look when things aren't going right. Let's look when stuff isn't going well, when you're not hanging banners, when you're not cutting down nets. Like, how are you as an individual? What are you really doing day to day? And she almost did it more so when things were tough. And I asked her, I remember, when she first got sick, I asked her, like, how do you get through day to day when things get tough? And she's like, left foot, right foot, breathe, repeat. And honestly, that is, I promise you, what I say sometimes. Even when I'm like wanting to explode, I'm like, left foot, right foot, breathe, repeat. Like that's my mantra. And then secondly, I cannot remember, it was in gym class when I was in like 8th or 9th grade. They had somebody come in and speak to us. And they said that the power of humans is our ability to have compassion and think of others' needs and think of what others would want to do. And sometimes we end up putting others in, before ourselves. And so on those days where you don't want to do something, on those days where you're struggling, who are you doing it for? And so for me, when I don't want to work out, when I don't want to hop on the Peloton and do my 45-minute workout, I like Lailaa. Like I'm doing it for her.
You think of someone. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm doing it for you. And sometimes I'll tell her, Lailaa, I worked out for you today. Like, Lailaa, I got on that plane to go to Atlanta today for you. Like, that's who I got on the plane for. And so it kind of helps, when you want to do that extra, you don't want to do that extra set or you don't want to do that extra line drill or whatever. I just say who I'm doing it for.
Isn't that true? When I'm running long distance, I don't want to run long distance.
Gosh,
I just committed to doing the marathon in March in LA because I've been putting it off for my whole life.
You're a saint.
Because I'm a sprinter. I'm a basketball, football player. I don't run more than 3 miles, and that's a lot. And I've been starting to every mile think of someone when it gets hard.
Yep.
And put my attention towards that person. And my focus is I don't want to let this person down. And me stopping this mile is letting this person down in my life. And so I use that as a technique and a tool to just put my attention elsewhere as opposed to my own pain or tiredness.
Yeah.
And it
that's
really
amazing.
helps.
That's amazing.
And then when I run the marathon, I'm going to have a wristband and I'll put a name, 26 names.
That would be...
And just look down every mile and put my attention towards those individuals.
First of all, I want to commend you because I started doing distance training last off season.
Oh man.
And when
it's
I tell
miserable.
you, it's just like not what I do. Like I see
Misery.
regular people that aren't athletes out running miles on the beach. And I'm just like, how?
I know.
I don't get it. So first of all, I want to commend you for doing a marathon because that's commitment.
Well, I haven't done it yet, but I'm committed
But I
to it,
mean,
yes.
at least committing to preparing for a
Yes.
marathon. But secondly, like you're right, because then you turn that attention and that energy. Like I think so much is energy. Like if you think about it when you walk in, I can't remember who I was listening to, what podcast it was, but they were talking about how like, you can turn on a television and you can tell teams that play with energy. It's just something that you can't touch, you can't feel. It's not, it's the intangibles. And I feel like that with working out, with the way you do things, like energy is everything. And if you can create and find that energy, like you're able to do so much.
How do you find it when you don't have it?
I think it's thinking of your why, thinking of your reason. I also feel as though like when you do something, the look back feeling, like the feeling of gratitude, like there's so many times where I wake up and I don't want to work out. And then after I'm done, I'm like, oh, there's
So
never
happy.
a time where I'm like, I wish I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
It doesn't really
Unless
happen.
maybe you injured yourself or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But usually you're like, I feel so much better. I did it. I accomplished this. I'm so goal oriented. So I have the microscopic goals from day to day, and I have the telescopic goals. And those are so important to me because you kind of lose sight when you're looking out into the future. You lose sight of how you're going to accomplish it. So those microscopic goals, those daily goals of like, okay, I'm going to do this. At least I've done this task.
Right.
Like I accomplished something today.
All right. Where do you think it'd be without goals?
Oh my goodness. I am so goal oriented. Like to the point where when I tore my ACL, the degrees that they try to get your knee to bend. And I remember them telling me, because the first thing, don't tell me I can't do something.
Right.
I'm the one that's like, my dad was like trying to get rid of me on a Saturday and was like, run around the house 80 times. My brother's like, yeah, I bet you can't do it. I'll give you $5. And on the 100th lap, I was like, you said 80, like I did it 100 times, So don't tell me I can't do something. And so that's kind of my goals. Like I set them, with that in mind of trying to push myself and trying to see what I can achieve, make it a competition even within my head.
Yeah. Do you think anyone can achieve great accomplishments without setting clearly defined big goals and incremental goals along the way? Do you think it just happens? I have this idea, it's just going to happen. Or,
I mean, you can call it discipline, you can call it organization, you can call it goal oriented, but I think you have to have some sort of plan.
Yeah.
I don't know. And maybe there are people that just fall upon stuff, but to me, I think it has to be clear, calculated. You have to have a purpose. Otherwise, for me, I lose motivation. If I don't know what I'm trying to accomplish, what it's going to get, that type of thing, then, like, if you get on a treadmill and you're just running and you don't know how long you're running for, you don't know the distance you're running, you don't know the speed. I don't know many people. Maybe there's some, like, Marines out there that would just get on there and run until it's time. But I was, like, the one at practice, like, okay, so it would just tell me at least the first 5 minutes so I can get through that and then we can make it work.
Yeah, it's funny. Unless you're like Forrest Gump, maybe. It just felt like
that just
running.
likes running.
It just felt like
Don't
running.
walk anywhere.
He went for 2
So I
years.
ran.
I love that movie. Where do you think you'd be without coaches in your life? Do you think you'd be able to be as great as an athlete, champion, All-American, Player of the Year without coaches? Could you do it on your own, you think?
No, absolutely not. And I think the biggest, maybe on the court, for some people, but for me personally, it's like sports is like a metaphor for life. There's so many things within life that I wouldn't have been able to get over or accomplish or persevere through without having those failures in sport. And I always love the coach that kind of like tests people to see how they react. Yeah, no, I definitely wouldn't be able to accomplish any of this stuff just because I think the mental toughness, when you're young, you don't understand why, but soon you realize later in life, you're like, that's what allowed me to have the mental toughness.
Right.
Because, when you're younger, everybody kind of micromanages your time. You're in study hall to make sure that you do it. They're checking every grade. Then you get to the pros and they're like, yeah, so the bus is at this time. We play at this time. You got to eat by yourself.
Yeah.
You got to figure out your workout plan. You have to do all these things. And so it's like coaches before taught me how to have discipline. And sometimes people don't do what they need to do. They need other people to tell them. And, once you get to a point where you're kind of like your own disciplinarian, I think it's really special.
Yeah. I've been
You know what you need,
Of course, yeah. I've always been very disciplined. I wouldn't say always, but I say when I got to high school and on, I got very disciplined because I got clear on my goals. But having a coach could always push me a little harder than I would push myself. Just a little bit even.
So
I could push myself hard. I can work out with the best of them alone in the gym, but it's like you got someone over your shoulder helping you, correcting you, just watching you. You're going to push a little harder. When I transitioned from playing arena football, I never made it to the NFL, but I was making $250 a week. And I felt like the richest man in the world because I was getting to catch a football and I got paid. Playing arena ball, it was very hard to transition out of not having a team, a coach, an organization. And I quickly, within about a year, was like, I need to make my life a sport. I need to find coaches in fitness and relationships and business and have some type of guides helping me. And I've always had coaches since then, and it's always made me better. So I'm a big believer in coaches in sport, in life, as a mom, as a whatever. For me personally, it's key.
I think it's key, and you hit it right on the head. And Coach Summit used to always say this: when you're chasing something, you should chase people and passion. And if you chase those two things, you'll never fail. And in a way, especially in these last 2 years, when I've kind of started thinking about what I want to do after basketball, after the ball stops bouncing, I realize it's like your relationships that you're building with people. And, my goal, I want to win another championship for sure within basketball. My goal after basketball, like I look at guys like Magic Johnson, and I look at how he's kind of he's a businessman. He transitioned into that. And honestly, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but he was kind of one of the first from the NBA that really became a businessman. And I remember a couple years ago, I had a meeting with him and I was like, I want to be you. I want to have that transition where we can open up doors for other women in sport. Because honestly, like, if you think about it, just training-wise, team sports are run like a boardroom.
Yeah.
That's how it is. And so you're learning and you're competitive and you learn how to fail. You learn how to get up. We're coachable. And that's the first thing I say. Anytime I, have a business meeting or anything, like, listen, I'm coachable. So you tell me what you want, what you don't like. We can talk about it. And so that's kind of, you're right. It is about surrounding yourself with great people. And, obviously you're going to be passionate in what you do, but it's the people that really make it.
What did Pat mean by chasing people?
She always surrounded herself with people that had a number of goals that kind of were in the same chapter as her. She said she doesn't want people on the same page. She just needs people in the same chapter. Because you can eventually get to the same page. That's what she said. I can remember a number of times is she was always a mentor. She was always for her assistant coaches leaving and getting head coaching jobs.
That's cool.
And then basically imagine the impact that she had at Tennessee. And then those coaches are taking what she had and what she said and what she taught them, so their programs. And so it's almost like that trickle-down effect of the amount of kids that she truly has impacted is still going on, because there's still head coaches that coached under her. And so that to me is what chasing people means. It means, establishing a community. It means being a mentor. Like, there's so many people in my life that have done things for me with nothing in return.
Right.
Like, there's so many times where you really are like, why did they help me? But then you go and do something for somebody that it doesn't benefit you at all. And so I think that's kind of like, that's what being a good human is, It's just like, there's paying it forward, and you go out to dinner and somebody pays for your dinner, and then the next time you pay for somebody else's dinner, and like kind of trickles down. And so that's kind of, that's
cool.
what I learned from Pat.
What's missing in your life?
Ooh, really good. Every question you ask is a good question. What is missing in my life? I am truly fulfilled. Truly, truly fulfilled. I'm grateful. I have so much gratitude. I mean, right now, competition, I'm like dying because I'm so competitive. And so I'm getting on my daughter's nerve because like we go out to casually like bump a volleyball and I'm like, okay, let's see if we can get to 20. And it's just the competition aspect. So I would say right now it's the competition because we're not in season. I would say another championship. I believe you can fall up on something once and it can be an accident. It can be lucky. If you do it twice, it's not. So for me, I'm chasing that.
And you won in 2016, right?
Yep.
But you got 2 Olympic gold medals?
Yes.
That's got to feel good. What's more powerful, the Olympic gold medal or the WNBA championship?
To me, it's the WNBA championship, hands
Really?
down. The Olympics, it's like, not to be like this, but Americans can field 3 teams and probably come home with the gold, silver, and bronze.
Really?
Honestly, I really feel like American basketball, women's basketball, and this is no offense to any of the international players, but I just believe that
dominant.
we are head and shoulders above the world. And by saying that, yes, it was competition with Australia. They're amazing. Yes, it was competitions with Russia and Spain and so on. But at the same time, women's, winning a WNBA championship against the best players in the entire world.
Wow.
To me, that's
like the Olympics, the way it should be. It's like the best of the best coming together. What? God, that's still got to feel good to win that Olympic gold.
It was amazing. When I'm telling you, like, when I was standing on the podium, because this girl watched the Olympics in '96.
Yeah.
When it was in Atlanta, and that was kind of when it transcended the way I thought of women's sports. Like, women were unbelievable in the '96 Olympics.
Yeah, was that Jackie Joyner? Was that?
It was, yes, Lisa Leslie. You talk about, you talk about Mia Hamm. You talk about Dominique Dawes, Dominique Moceanu. I can name the whole Magnificent Seven. Everybody, top to bottom, was unbelievable in '96.
Yeah.
And then in 2008, stand on that stage. You talk about 12 years later.
Wow.
To me, I remember being that kid on the couch with my dad telling him I'm going to be on that podium.
Oh, man, that's chills.
And so to hear the national anthem play and to experience the opening ceremony and to see how other athletes react to American athletes, that experience is, one of the best of the best.
Would you do it again?
No. My time with the Olympics is done.
Really?
Yeah, in 2016, after coming off of playing pretty well, didn't think that there was a question of whether I was going to make the team in 2016.
When you won a championship.
We won the championship, and I got cut from the Olympic team.
How?
And honestly,
you just won the WNBA championship. How did you get cut?
I guess that's a question for USA Basketball.
Wait a minute.
I don't know.
You're like the best player in the league. How did they cut you?
I don't know. You got to ask Gino. But honestly, it was kind of one of those situations where I'm big into communication. So if there was no possible way for me to make the team regardless of how I played, because it wasn't based on playing, then tell me. And I don't waste my time away from my daughter. I don't waste my time away from
training
my family.
Camp and all
training
stuff.
camp, all that. So
wow.
That to me was adversity. But honestly, looking back, if that was the situation I was going to walk into, playing would have not been a fun time for me.
No, it's true.
So, I got to spend more
sucks.
time with my kid at home. And two is I got to experience something twice.
Yeah.
This past Olympic Games with Don Staley,
Were you supposed to go?
They reached out and asked if I wanted to participate. And to me, I was like, if it was something that I looked in my mirror and I said I didn't deserve to be on the team, I might come back out for the team just because I feel as though, I did something. But how in the world am I going to tell my daughter if somebody or something treats you wrong or in an unfair manner to go back? And so that kind of was my ending point of my time with the Olympics and with USA Basketball is over.
Is that person still there?
Gino is not the coach anymore, but the committee picks the
system,
team, which is, whatever. But
I get it.
At the same time, it was just kind of one of those situations where I was like, no, I'm good. I'm cool.
Interesting.
I'll spend time at home.
Yeah. What if they all said, we really want you back in 2021?
I'm good.
You're good. Nothing would change your mind.
I'm good. I'm going to be chilling. I'm working on getting my daughter a passport because she's not playing for USA Basketball. I was playing.
Really?
No, I'm kidding. No, but yeah. So my time is finished. I appreciate the time and the energy I put into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's done.
Wow. How many more years do you want to play? If you could decide, I'm going to play until this year, this season, what would that be?
Here's the thing. I was sitting with Isaiah Thomas in studio because he retired, I think, early. He retired at 32, 33, Isaiah Thomas. And, we grew up.
Did he want to retire or was it injury or?
I think it was a combination of both.
Yeah.
He said he showed up at the gym and he didn't want to play. And he was like, I can't cheat the game.
No.
And it was one of those situations where it's like when you go out on the court and it's fun and you're used to dominating and working people and being able to get to the basket when you want, and then you're looking at people that you would normally cook and you would normally beat in a game, and they're going past you and you can't score on them. He's like, it just wasn't fun anymore. And for me, I don't ever want to cheat. It's not even cheating the game because there's some people that can play, but I'm not really competing against the game. I want to compete against myself. And if I'm not where I want to be or who I am, my brother said it best. Anthony said it best. He's like, you have that year and then you have that possible. And if that possible tells you that year was true, then you're done. And so honestly, in 2019, that was my year where this past year was that, let me roll the dice. And if it's the same as last year, I might be done.
Really?
And so
this might be your last year.
I'm not saying that, this year or the next year or even 3 years, but I'm saying when I am not able to do the things that I'm used to doing, I have to walk away from the game.
Wow.
I cannot cheat myself in the game like that.
Yeah. Wow. But if you could choose, hypothetically, how many more years would you like to play if you still loved it? If you're still healthy and loved it?
Honestly, it's not even the love. I love basketball.
Yeah.
I love competing. I love being in the arena. I love all of that. It's when you don't want to prepare. When you don't want to get up in the off season. You don't
want to do the sand runs.
You don't want to do the sand dunes. You don't want to go. That's the problem. Because then you need all that stuff. Everybody wants to play in the playoff games and all that stuff. It's when I stop wanting to prepare is when I'm going to know.
Yeah, you'll know.
It's there. And, honestly, who knows? It could be next year. It could be the year after. It could be, 3 or 4 more years. But at the same time, I know I have my circle. And I've told them, look at me. If I waver and I don't stay true to myself, you guys have to hold me accountable. And they all agreed.
That's good. That's good. It's been an amazing year in terms of people standing up for their rights and people standing up for what they believe in. and Black Lives Matter, and you've been a part of this as well. We've had a lot of great conversations on this show. What are you most proud of in terms of the Black community stepping up this year, or people or organizations? What are you most proud of, or the WNBA, in terms of what has happened, even though there's been a lot of things that are not to be proud of?
Our country right now, we have a time problem. And by this, I'm going to explain when I mean that we think things were like terrible or bad years and years and generations ago, and it wasn't the case. And in the same instance, we think we haven't gotten better. And we think it's so long that we haven't gotten better. And I say that in the sense of, and my parents were born in the 50s, and in the 60s, looking back, you think about all the things that they've lived through. And then just even within the last 4 years, you think about 2017, Colin Kaepernick. You think about kneeling. If you kneeled, you were on the wrong side at that point in time.
Wow.
And then you fast forward now, in this past year, if you didn't kneel, people were asking questions why you didn't. So if something like that can change in a 4 or 5 year span, I really am proud of the fact that we haven't even recognized that a generation ago, it was 2 or 3 athletes that were standing up for activism and social injustice and gender equality and things like that. And now we have entire leagues.
Wow.
Within a generation. We have an entire league. Like, being a part of that this past year in the bubble, where 144 players in the WNBA all gathered during the break, the 2-day break of observance, and standing in solidarity with the Milwaukee Bucks after Jacob Blake, the Jacob Blake shooting, to realize the impact that it wasn't just 1 or 2 athletes. It was entire sports leagues.
Wow.
And so to me, if you don't talk about the step forwards the steps you're taking forward, and how important it is to understand it's not necessarily about what people think is right or what today's morals and values and things like that. It's what's right. And if you continue to work towards that, like, I am so proud of our league, because, even looking at kneeling, it's like, that was unacceptable 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And now it's like, if you don't, you're like, oh, so you're not kneeling? What are you going to... We got booed in 2017 for not coming out for the national anthem. We had so many players from overseas and foreign players on our team that we didn't feel comfortable making that decision. They didn't understand everything that was going into kneeling. And so just as one of the captains on the team, like, we can't put them in that situation.
Yeah, make them stand and we're kneeling, or make them kneel.
Yeah,
it's not their country. Yeah.
And whatever we're going to do together. And we decided to stay in the locker room. We got booed in Minnesota. Booed during the finals game. And so to think now how that has shifted so much, even in just that practice and what is accepted. I'm really proud to be a part of that change. And I think that sports leagues definitely have been a catalyst for that.
Yeah. What can athletes do moving forward after this year to support in making change? Because there's a lot of also people talk and say athletes should just be, not saying anything and just playing the game and not trying to get into, I guess, whatever politics or society's issues, and just show up and play. What do you think needs to happen moving forward with athletes and with leagues of all types?
I can only speak for myself when I feel as though I continually educate myself constantly. I have 3 different news outlets, top 5 or 6 news breakdowns every single morning that's sent to my phone that I read, so I can get different opinions and different viewpoints.
What are those outlets?
So I'm a flipboarder.
Yeah.
Newsweek, MSNBC, CNN.
Okay.
So those are kind of my 4 that I have sent to my email, that you can get the rundown for the top 5, or you can do the Reuters, where it's like the news in 3 minutes if you have 3 minutes. So I'm big into that. My dad, I get that from him. I'm a huge history buff. I'm reading all the time. So I feel as though, like, now we're running into a time where it's like athletes are educated. We're not speaking on something that we don't have knowledge on. Just as your dentist is able, and you feel as though that they fit the criteria to speak on politics, I want to make sure as athletes, like we are too. I have a college degree, feel as though I keep up with the times, I understand different viewpoints, and I can listen and hear more, but at the same time, I do feel the things that we're speaking on,
Yeah.
you have to be knowledgeable about. And so honestly, I believe athletes that are speaking out, they are. And so I would advise them to continue to use their platform. There's no other place in the world that they're told to just shut up and clean teeth. Like, that's not, like, am I right? Like, you're never told as a dentist, like, you know what, you just shut up and clean teeth. Like, nobody says that. So to tell athletes to shut up and dribble, when you don't know, what they're doing in their spare time, or if they're speaking about something that makes you uncomfortable, if they're speaking the truth and, knowledgeable about the subject, and opinions are opinions, but at the same time, like, I don't think anybody has the right to tell anybody to just shut up and do what they do.
Yeah. You were born in St. Louis. I lived in St. Louis for 8 years.
Hey.
And then you moved to Naperville.
Yes.
And I had an internship in Naperville in college, actually. And I also, Naperville.
Connection.
There's a memory where I actually qualified for the national championships at North Central College.
North Central College, yeah.
It's a beautiful little campus,
It
small
is.
little school, but beautiful. And I played a playoff football game there as well, actually, that we won. So I have some good
So
memories.
awesome.
Good memories
Connection.
in Naperville, yeah. And you grew, in this community, it was majority white kids that you went to school with, right? What do you say to white friends that reach out to you during this time? The types of kids you grew up with, or friends now, what do you say to white people on how they can be supportive to you personally as an individual, and also with everything that's happening in the world?
You know what I struggle with? And this is my best friend. We've been friends since we were 11 years old. Absolute best friend. She has 2 beautiful boys. We see each other all the time, especially before COVID. We always made a trip. She stays with us, her and her husband, family. And she was one of the first to reach out and basically, ask, what can I do? How can I help? What can I post? How can I be an ally? So honestly, it's really just, I think, listening. But at the same time, I struggle because I don't ever want to be seen as the other, but you're different type of thing. And I think some of the rooms that I walk into, especially being a woman of color, a lot of people assume that I'm not like anybody else because you haven't really seen people like that sit at the table. At TNT, the same thing. I go back and forth with the guys all the time, and they're like, man, it's so awesome how you go back and forth with them. There's 20 million other people like that can do this. It's just they got to get a chance.
Yeah.
And, I think we allow people to fit, okay, we have 1 at the table, but we're scared to bring 2 or 3. And it's that's my biggest thing is open your eyes to understand that it doesn't just have to be 1 puzzle piece. There can be a couple more. And so I think that's what I challenge my white friends and my white allies to do within their own organizations, corporations, friends, I don't know, everything, is to understand it's not just 1 place that can fit. You can fit a couple more puzzle pieces in there. Eventually, I hope to get to a point where it's the person that fits the job. And we talk a lot about just in terms of hiring. What if they did an experiment in the book Blink, and they were talking about the orchestra has always been all male because males just play the orchestra better. And so for 1 year, the orchestra had family members that were trying out, so they had to use a screen, and it was 50-50 picked, women and men.
Wow.
So for me, I think the unconscious bias, you look at yourself every day in the mirror and you ask yourself, you're only going to know that much. But if you go out and you try to find your blind spots, that's when we're really going to accomplish what we all hope to have is equality and judging it based on the person.
Yeah, that's great. I got a couple final questions for you.
Right.
This has been great, but I'm curious. If you had to get a tattoo on your forehead, permanent for the rest of your life, that had a word or a phrase that you would always be reminded of when you're in the mirror and other people would be reminded of when they look at you, what would that word or phrase be?
Word or phrase? Intention. If everybody goes forward with pure intention, whether you're right or whether you're wrong, if I don't believe just solely judging people on intention, because you got to have some action behind it as well. But I think if people would purify their intention, and ask themselves what's your actual intention, and then maybe like at least be, cognizant of their intention going into a situation, I think the world would be a lot better, honestly.
Yeah.
I sometimes call my grandma and I tell her I intended to send you a card.
Right.
This is me telling you I intended to send you a card, and I know it's not based on intended, but I did think about you and whatever. And then also just when you go in situations of problems or chaos or being uncomfortable, you ask yourself, like, what is the intention? What am I going into this to do? Am I trying to solve the problem, or am I trying to, make it worse? And so I think that would be something that I always talk about.
Yeah, the power of intention. Oprah talks about that a lot. Power of intention. I asked this question to Kobe towards the end of our interview. I asked him his definition of love. I'm curious, what's your definition of love? And when do you feel the most loved?
My definition of love is, I think the definition in my dictionary for love would have a picture of my daughter next to it, because I think I would give, sacrifice, accomplish whatever for her, honestly. Wow. And to me, I don't think you understand love until you have a child. Wow. That's just from my perception. She honestly has changed every single thing about me. And, I try to be better for her. I try to look at situations in a different way for her. So that would be my definition of it.
And when do you feel the most loved?
I feel the most loved when I see some of, like, the qualities in my daughter. I see them come to life. For instance, when she just randomly will do something super sweet, or, she knows I drink tea every night. And so her and her friend had a sleepover one night, and I got back and totally didn't expect her to make me tea or anything. Yeah. And so she had a note on the table, on the counter, like, Mom, here's your tea. Make sure you stir it before you drink it. And it was just like, it's like those little acts of service and little things that make people know that you're thinking about them and that they're thinking about you. To me is when I feel the most loved.
And I've watched some videos of you talk about legacy and how important that is for you. What do you want people to say about you when you're gone?
I believe legacy, can be two ways. You can take or you can leave. And there's a lot of people that within their legacy, they're taking, people's time. They're taking things, and it can still be a positive legacy. But for me, I want to leave, I want to leave impact. And I really believe that you are, your children are your legacy. You're hopefully leaving them behind when you leave this earth. And so the way that they speak of you, the way they talk about you, the lessons that you taught them. For me, I am a legacy of Coach Summit. Every day when I'm parenting, whatever I'm doing, there's some of Coach that's in there. Yeah. And so just to have that impact in my life, and to know that, like, when I do leave this earth, I want to impact individuals with their passion, in their everyday lives.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. This question is called the 3 truths. I ask everyone at the end.
Okay.
So, hypothetical question. Imagine it's your last day on earth, and you've achieved and accomplished everything you want to accomplish. But for whatever reason, you've got to take all of your accomplishments with you. All the content, this interview, anything you ever create, videos of you from the past, they all go with you. But you get to leave behind 3 things you know to be true to the world. And this is all they would have access to, are these 3 lessons you would share, or what I like to call 3 truths. Ooh. What would you say are yours?
My 3 truths that I would leave behind would be, it can be a lesson. It doesn't have to be
a lesson.
Okay.
Yeah, a lesson that you share with the world.
I know the cliche, you are your biggest competition, but growing up, my dad used to always tell me, like, the measuring stick for others, you might be head and shoulders above, but what you're truly able to accomplish and what you're truly able to do, if you base yourself all the time on what other people are doing, you're going to sell yourself short sometimes. And so I think for me, it would be like, you truly are your biggest competition.
I like that. That's one.
another competition type of thing, because I'm driven by that, is, I posted a couple days ago about how when you compete against how undisciplined you are, when you compete against, looking in the mirror and knowing your blind spots and the things that you struggle at, compete against everything within yourself that you need to work on. When you start competing against that instead of competing against somebody that got the job that you wanted, you're gonna be so much better.
Yeah.
And so I think that's those are two things. And then the last thing would be just enjoying the process. Like enjoying the everydayness, we look up and it's freaking December already.
Crazy.
Crazy year.
Over.
It's gone fast. What do they say? The days are long and the years are short. Like that's how it is. So if there's anything, I really believe in enjoying the moment, enjoying the process, and living with the results.
Yeah. I want to acknowledge you for a moment, Candace, in your childlike spirit and energy. I feel like even though you're a mom and you're an adult and you're this professional athlete, you have this childlike curiosity and energy. You're a lifelong learner, which I love about you and I appreciate about you. And just your joy. I really acknowledge your joy because I think the world needs more of that. And I think we as individuals need more joy in times of stress and anxiety.
Thank you.
And your wisdom. I acknowledge your wisdom as well.
Thank
and your
you.
ability to be coachable. Because a lot of people, when they achieve something, they think they've got it figured out. And you continue to say, I'm here to learn, I'm here to grow, I'm here to look myself in the mirror and see what are my blind spots. And I really acknowledge you for that. And it's no reason, there's no doubt in my mind why you're such a great athlete and great human being because of these qualities. So
that means so much.
Yeah.
I think just in the people that I've met, it's been it's the versatility aspect. When you meet somebody that it's like doing other things,
range.
Like you find your passion and you find your energy day to day because you have this or you have this or you have this. Like you're running a marathon, like doing, you played football, you're doing basketball, you're doing a number of things. And so for me, it's like if we run the same play, I'm not that person. I'm going to struggle with it. I'll just tell you. No, honestly, if I just have one thing, I'm so much better when I have, so much. And so that's kind of where the passion comes from.
Yeah.
For sure.
Have you read the book Range yet?
No, I need
to. Read this. I think David Epstein is the guy's name.
Okay.
An author. I had him on the show. Hopefully that's his name. I can't remember if that's gets the authors mixed up.
Yes.
But Range, he talks about.
Range.
He talks about athletes actually become better when they have a range of sports they play as kids because you can tie in these different things and aspects from baseball to football as opposed to just playing baseball year round. If you play football and baseball, you'll learn more from each sport that you can apply to that final sport.
So true.
Same thing in life. When you learn, I'm a big salsa dancer.
That's awesome.
I've been dancing for about 15 years.
That's so cool.
I love it, and I feel like it helps me in other areas of my life. I'm learning Spanish now. It's very challenging, but I feel like it's helping me in other areas of my life. So I'm doing the marathon. It's like I'm learning patience and sticking it out longer, and I like to do things quick. So all these things develop range and make us more interesting.
I love that. I'm going to read that book.
Check it out, Range.
My parents were so, I played soccer, I played volleyball, I played basketball, I did a bunch of sports before I was able to settle on basketball because they were like, no, we want you to try out.
That's great.
A lot of stuff. And so that definitely helped me.
If you didn't play basketball, what would you have gone pro in?
Pro, honestly, and to this day, I want to be a historian. My goal is that one interview, kind of similar, no comparison, but remember in the TNT, they had Barack Obama and it was Chicagoan under his name, not president, but Chicagoan.
You want to be a historian.
I want to be a historian under just one documentary, where I'm on there just talking about JFK or something, and then they're just Candace Parker, historian. That's my goal. So I would have been, a history teacher or some type of professor if I wouldn't have played basketball.
That's cool. Well, people can follow you, and they should follow you, Candace_Parker on Twitter, Candance Parker on Instagram and Facebook. And follow your daughter, TikToks. You guys do amazing TikToks together, but great content over there. You got a podcast, but it's only during the season, is that right?
It's during the NBA season, yes. Lailaa and Parker, and we talk not just focused on basketball. We kind of like to explore the versatility of our guests a little bit. We actually have had some amazing guests. We had Kobe on.
Wow.
We've had, Jimmy Butler. We've had, Snoop Dogg.
That's cool.
We try to
mix it up.
spread it out.
Get some range.
Get some range with our
those
guests.
interviews.
Yes.
How else can we support you and serve you?
Well, I recently teamed up with D-Wade, CP3, and Carmelo Anthony to be a part of the Social Change Fund, which is basically trying to level the playing field and to reach equality with whether it's in social justice, whether it's voting. This past election season, we teamed up with the HBCUs to allow Uber or allow Lyft to have codes to, give people rides to the polls. So we're just trying to, do as much as we can in the community to support, different types of businesses and hopefully allow more people more opportunities.
How can people get involved in that or support that?
Well, you can go to Social Change Fund. You can either donate. You have the ability to do that on the website, or honestly, we would love to have different communities, different initiatives. I know education is a huge thing now that we're trying to figure out how we can impact, and so that's kind of how you can get involved.
That's cool. Well, I'm going to be making a donation right after you leave.
Thank you.
I encourage you guys to make a donation as well. This has been a pleasure, Candace. I'm very glad that we got to connect. Hopefully we can do more stuff in the future. Final question for you. What's your definition of greatness?
My definition of greatness is repeatedly getting up and doing something because you know that that's going to get you where you want to go, even when you don't feel like it. I feel like it's kind of greatness is the definition of commitment, where it says, what is it? Doing what you say you're going to do even when the moment passed that you said it in. And I feel like that's greatness, honestly, is continuing, whether it's when the lights are on, when the lights are off, when the gym is empty, when the gym is full, continuing to do what you know you've prepared and what you should do.
Candace, thank you so
You're
much.
awesome.
Appreciate it. Thank
you. I appreciate it.
If you're looking for more greatness in your life, make sure to check out this video right here. And also check out our free PDF, The 3 Secrets to Unlock the Power of Your Mind to help you change your life. Download it right here.
He had a great quote that said, "Rest at the end, not in the middle." And that's something I always live by. I'm not going to rest. I'm going to keep on pushing that.